Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. Different angle of the room, huh? You're so excited. I'm gonna try to look at the dot on the camera to make it look like I'm looking at you, but did I used to be better at this? I have no idea. Anyway, I am going to do Owlcrate unboxing and then hopefully tell you about this book. Let's start with the book because I only barely remember it. I just finished it 2 days ago, and it's called Jawbone by Monica Ojeda. I liked it. I would give it probably 3 stars overall. It is in the horror genre, but what it reminds me of is a cross between that movie with Evan Michael, I think it was Evan Michael Woods that was in it. 13. So it was the blonde girl and then the girl who played Rosalie from Twilight. This kind of reminds me of that. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of The Craft, but in a different way. And it's one of those books that is really about the bad and or mean-spirited girls in an elite sort of like privileged private school. But this one takes place in probably Ecuador, somewhere like Ecuador. The author is Ecuadorian, and this is a work in translation. There are 2 girls who are best friends, and they have this little posse of girls, and they hang out all the time. They find this abandoned building, and they start doing basically truth or dare, which becomes all dare. And one of the girls is very philosophical and starts to create this white god. It's called the White God, based on her kind of hyperfixation on the symbolism of the color white that was sparked by reading one of the chapters in Moby Dick. So she kind of creates this whole dogma related to this figure. And then the other point of view, or the other kind of story that's happening at the same time, is a new teacher to this school who has recently been traumatized by 2 of her students at another school. And this teacher already was a little unhinged because she was attempting to become a complete and total replicate of her own mother. Then she has this incident with the girls that is, they talked about it quite a bit in the book. And then she goes to this new school where this group of girls is really off-putting and entitled and can kind of smell her fear. So those are the 2 kind of stories that are happening that are kind of coming together. So the primary plot points are related to this teacher, the girl who is creating this kind of religious thing and is very into horror fiction. So reads a lot of creepypastas and they watch a lot of horror movies together, those kinds of things. And the girl who's her best friend. And we're not totally sure how all of it ends. So I don't think that's a spoiler to say that the ending is really pretty open. And all of the dire situations we start with are not necessarily resolved by the last page. So the horror in it is really dread and the compassionate fear we have for these kids and for this teacher and their kind of like situation. There's not a lot of horror, like there's not a lot of guts or things that would be considered jump scares and things like that. It's really more about the horror that is the human mind with these 3 primary characters, as well as the horror that is the internet and the access to anything that could possibly happen on the internet. So that's Jawbone by Monica Ojeda. I'm giving it 3 stars overall, which it probably sits at a comfortable 3 for me, primarily because I don't love books about mean girls in elite schools. But also there are large sections of the book that have no dialogue, that are very dense. There's one section of maybe like 6 single space pages that's just an essay one of the girls wrote to the teacher. There's long diatribe soliloquy kind of things from one of the teen characters to her therapist. So it was at times this little book, which is less than 300 pages. It's 239 pages, I think. Felt long. It just, like, there were times where I'm like, how much more of this chapter is there? But I liked the writing, or at least I like the translation. The translator is Sarah Booker. Let me see if I can find a quick spot to read. I think this book would be good for horror fiction class, where you talk about themes and recurring symbolism and visualizations and things like that, because there are a lot of that sort of like thing. It feels a little bit on the nose for an English class. And the class that this teacher teaches is actually English and literature. And they taught, they make lots of references to other literary works, other literary horror classic stuff. Frankenstein, Moby Dick, which isn't considered horror, but you can imagine how it would fit into a book like this. Some other things. And so, like, the teacher at one point is like, I'll try and connect with this horrible teenager by this horror fiction, by talking about some of these classic horror books. And the girl is not interested in connecting with this teacher, which makes a big difference in connecting with kids, I can tell you. Here's this tiny little section. There's no reason for me to pick it. This is when the teacher starts at this new school. We get a lot from the teacher's head because she doesn't talk a lot. She's walking in the building for the first time with the kids there. And she sees them. In a matter of minutes, Delta became a pack of white socks pulled over calves and shirts with buttons undone. The girls swarmed the patio, swollen backpacks on their shoulders, and the teachers dodged them as if trying to avoid looking at them directly. They, however, saw everything. There was not a single place or person that made them close their eyes. That's how they would watch her in the classroom, Clara thought, her nerves drying out her palate brazenly. The new teacher, they'd call her, until they learned her name. And in the process, they would examine her as they would an exotic animal to find out whether they should be good or bad to her. But Clara wasn't going to let them dictate her behavior. She could defeat them, she told herself. She could control the sweating and the lightheadedness. Even though she had experience with all kinds of teenagers, the noise of hundreds of voices talking on the patio, in the gardens, the corridors, and the parking lot made her shudder as if a gorilla were caressing her gums with one finger. She stood still, her feet close together, watching as the teenagers and Patricia the dean passed, as the girls doubled over with laughter and splattered drops of thick spit on the cobblestones. They look like bitches, she thought, and she was afraid her recent tremors would lead to tachycardia, the tingling and asphyxiation that belonged to her increasingly infrequent panic attacks. That paralyzed her and made her simultaneously fear and desire death. They're shedding, she moaned in her head, overwhelmed. Soon the floor will be filled with their hairs. Whew, okay, so that is Jawbone. It's a great fall read because it is, like I said, full of dreads, full of kind of spooky, what's going to happen, kind of moments, this kind of moment. Not a lot of jump scares, not a lot of grotesque descriptions, not a lot of guts and things like that. Although I think there might be a dissection referenced here because they're in high school. All right, so that is that. And then the Owlcrate I haven't opened yet. I'll open now. For what month just passed? August, I did a 30 reels in 30 days challenge. I did pretty good. I think I did 28 reels in the month. There were a couple that I just blatantly skipped and didn't worry about. Reels are taking over the algorithm over on Instagram, as we all know. Okay, so this is steeped in folklore, which makes me excited to even think about. And is that better? No. Is that better? No. Okay. And this is the August 2022 Owlcrate. I did go ahead and cancel my Bookish box subscription. I just didn't want it anymore. And I was frustrated. I guess what really helped me push it over the edge was that I got the Stalking Jack the Ripper series, the special edition series that they put out, and there were a bunch of errors in it. Now, I wouldn't have even recognized the errors were in there. I'm not going to read the special edition versions. I'm going to read it separately, but I love the concept. I loved the special edition mock-ups, all of that, so I got it. But then people started talking online about all the errors that were in the special edition, including like the author's name being spelled wrong at the top of all of the pages, but also some various other things. And the foiling on it was supposed to be a rose gold, and it's really a bronze or a copper. And they are replacing everybody's copies. I think they made a great statement. We're sorry. We're going to do better, you know, et cetera, et cetera. But because I've been trying to figure out which box to end anyways, that just kind of helped me end it. I really want to get the on the Bookish box adult box, but they're always sold out. So I was a rep on the adult box last year, around this time last year, I think, for 3 months, and really liked it more than I thought I was going to because I'm a YA fan. But because I get Owlcrate and some other things, what's the other box I get? Fairy Loot. Because I get Owlcrate and Fairy Loot, I sometimes get overlapping books with the Bookish box. So I got out of the YA Bookish box, and now I don't have any of the Bookish box, which of course I'm going to be super sad about every time someone opens one, but I'll keep an eye out for the adult one. All right, first thing I'm going to open is the Enamel Pen. So this is part of the Enamel Pen. Where's this camera? Right here. Enamel Pen collection. Every month we get an enamel pen that is shaped like a piece of luggage and inspired by a fictional destination. So this one is inspired by the Marigold, the ship in Fable. And if you haven't read Fable, what are you even doing with your life? It's so good. Especially if you like pirates, obviously. It's got a little twinge of romance, but not overdoing it. It's fantasy adventure. And it took me a while to even agree that it was fantasy. It is fantasy, but the fantasy isn't overdone either. The main character has these abilities to sense jewel authenticity and worth and all those kinds of things. I don't know that there's a lot of other fantastical things that happen in that book. If I'm forgetting, somebody let me know, but it's not a, in my mind, it's not that big of a fantasy. Okay, now we've got Will You Tell Me a Story, Wolf Girl, a charm. I love charms like this. It says, Will you tell me a story, Wolf Girl, on the back. And then there's, it's focusing on me instead of a pen. Let's see. Is that better? No. Now it's focusing on my hand. This was inspired by The Wolf and the Woodsman, which I have not read yet. Zipper pull, collaboration with Pickety Witch and Joan of Arc. It is so cute. I didn't put a bag over here to put the stuff in, and I regret it. Okay, we got a tea and honeybush tea, apple pieces, Ceylon tea, cacao nibs, cinnamon, natural banana flavor, natural chestnut flavor, marigold vanilla. And it's called, the blend is called Steeped in Folklore. And it's from Riddle's Tea Shop. I've never gotten a tea from Riddle's that I didn't like. And this one is banana bread flavored. Crafted exclusively for the box. I love the the little things. The artwork. Okay, ceramic bowl. I am gonna guess it's part of the the series that I have 2 of already, because it's this year, that are from Lord of the Rings. So this is the 3rd one, I think. Touching it. A bit of magic of Middle Earth to your table with a limited edition ceramic bowl collection. Each bowl in this 4-part series celebrates a different iconic location from Tolkien's Lord of the Rings universe. This 3rd installment brings us to the elvish realm of Rivendell. Is it upside down? Yep. I would say I'm not part of the Lord of the Rings fandom. I can actually say it pretty comfortably. I'm not part of the Lord of the Rings fandom, but I love these bowls. Tapestry. This tapestry is inspired by Uprooted. By, I believe Uprooted is Naomi Novik. It doesn't say that on there. There was a song in the forest. Really pretty. I love the green on it. This is not the best place for an unboxing because I feel like I'm kind of stuck in this chair and can't move around as much as I might normally. And the last item before we get to the book, and I'm really just, I lied at the beginning when I said I was going to try and look at the camera, didn't I? I've been looking at myself the whole time, which is really annoying. So I think this is an origami set. They've included instructions for making cranes, but you can be creative with your own pieces. To this day, cranes carry the strands of our fate. Okay, so let's see what the book is. So this was inspired by 6 Crimson Cranes. I didn't say that before, but obviously it was. Look at this. 6 Crimson Cranes, if you haven't read it, so good. The sequel, I think it's a sequel. It could be a prequel or it could be unrelated, but I'm pretty sure it is a sequel. Has recently come out, and I really need to get it. I've got the Fairy Loot version of the first one. I wonder if that means I have to get a Fairy Loot version of the second one. Ugh. This is how they trap you, people. This is how they trap you. I'm excited for that tea. All right. The book is The Drowned Woods by Emily Lloyd Jones, who, according to the cover of this, is the author of The Bone Houses, which I've never read, or if I've heard of, I only recognize it by the cover. Obviously, I'm not turning around and selling these on Mercari. Get my lips all over the plastic. Dear Owlcrate reader, for as long as I can remember, I've loved two things: forests and fairy tales. I also love forests from a distance. I have a lot of unnecessary fear for forests because of fairy tales, which is actually the reason why fairy tales in forests exist. They were cautionary tales for being out in the woods. The top says, the ocean will rise and a kingdom will fall. The girl learned that water could save a life or take it. It was a lesson she wouldn't forget. Okay, let's look at the book first. Here's the cover. No sprayed edges, which is not usual for Owlcrate anyway. Here are the end pages. See if they're the same on the back. Yep. And then there is an alternate. Holy shit, y'all. I love this more than I can say. I might actually wrap this backwards on the book because that is gorgeous and a travesty to be on the inside. Absolutely a travesty. And then here's the naked book. Love the blue. That's gold foiling on the back and the front. And then this is upside down and it says, the ocean was immortal and patient. I want to read this, although I don't know what it's about yet, but the visuals have drawn me in like nobody's business. Let's read what it's about. The right cause can topple a kingdom. Once upon a time, the kingdoms of Wales were rife with magic and conflict. An 18-year-old Mairid, or Mare, is well acquainted with both. As the last living water diviner, she can manipulate water with magic, and it's a skill many would kill to possess. For years, Mare has been running from the prince who bound her into his service and forced her to kill hundreds with her magic. Now all Mare desires is a safe, quiet life far from power and politics. But that peace is disrupted when Mare's old handler returns with a proposition. Use your abilities to bring down the very prince who abused them both. With a motley crew of allies, including a fey-cursed young man, the Lady of Thieves, and a corgi that may or may not be a spy, Mare must decide whether to run for the rest of her life or stand and fight for the true freedom she's long desired. Part heist novel, part dark fairy tale, this immersive and ethereal fantasy from acclaimed author Emily Lloyd Jones will enchant readers until the very last page. I wasn't loving the water theme, but I'm gonna read the shit out of this book. As soon as I get it from the library or buy a copy that I don't mind getting my grubby paws on. Water does not appeal to me. And actually, I am maybe a liar to myself because I love pirate stories. I was just talking about Fable, for God's sake. Maybe I just don't like to be on the water. I was just an Antony and Cleopatra, all about the water. So maybe it's just my own fear of being on open water that sometimes gives me the dreads when there's a book that's about water a lot. Because actually I just got a horror book about tides or something. It's called Dark Tide. I got it from the Nightworms box and it looks pretty good too. So maybe fall is all about water horror for me. Okay, friends, what else is there to chat about? This is a long one, so I'm going to shut up now. Catch you on the next one.